Turmeric. Eliminate aches and pains, defend the body against cancer, inflammation and infection while improving mental clarity and mood? What about weight loss and improved skin tone, anti-aging, energy and more? Are these benefits real, or is it just a case of overzealous nutritionists and marketeers? Watch this video and I'll explain everything I know and talk about the synthetic versions masquerading as curcumin and being taken by unsuspecting consumers. Now, before you run out and buy just any turmeric supplement for your aches and pains, please stop and watch this first. All turmeric supplements are not the same. In fact, I hate to say it, but it's likely that the vast majority of them are a complete waste of your money. Having said this, there is one that is extremely effective and you won't believe you can get it without a doctor's prescription. Well, at least you don't need a doctor's prescription yet anyway. This is my office. I'm a practicing family doctor. I hold professorial positions at 4 universities. I completed my Master of Science and Ph.D. in Nutrition and Brain Development before undertaking several postdoctoral fellowships, during which I investigated the importance of diet in the control of blood pressure and body weight. I've written over 50 book chapters and scientific papers, some of which have appeared in the world's most prestigious journals, including Science and Nature Medicine. My real passion as a doctor is in helping people achieve better health and well-being through superior research-based nutrition, supplementation, weight management, and appropriate physical exercise. In an age where people are obtaining most of their information from some fairly dubious social media sources, I see my role as helping to provide the best information so others can benefit. It all starts with what's inside this amazing root vegetable, a healing wonder called curcumin. Not coincidentally, curcumin is said to be the most popular ingredient in the joint health formulas of today. With over 10,000 clinical trials, turmeric and curcumin just may be the #1 natural inflammation fighters out there. Having told you that, it should come as no surprise that both the US government and many drug companies have already invested hundreds of millions of pounds into better understanding curcumin. But there's a big problem with curcumin. Nature hasn't made it easy for us. Unfortunately, turmeric and its active component curcumin suffer extremely poor bioavailability. What that means is that after taking it, practically none of it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So it simply cannot get to the parts of the body that could benefit most from it. Turmeric or curcumin powders and oil capsules pass right through you unaltered. Expensive poo, right? But recently, all this changed when a small team of world-class nutritional biochemists in Australia, of all places, after years of trials, finally cracked the code and figured out a way to make curcumin fully bioavailable to your body, unleashing all its powerful benefits. The result was truly groundbreaking, and it led to the development of Truth Origin's fully upgraded liquid curcumin, the #1 new curcumin supplement, beating all other curcumin products on the market. With the promise of next-level natural inflammation fighting, Truth Origins went viral and took the health world by absolute surprise, with so much interest that the company has been struggling ever since to keep up with customer demand. It immediately became the #1 curcumin supplement in the United Kingdom, with a Trustpilot rating that's the envy of all others. People are clearly getting benefit and love it because the return rate is practically zero, despite a full no quibble, no fuss, 60-day results guarantee or your money back. So if you aren't already taking Truth Origin's liquid curcumin, then you need to watch, because right now you're going to learn the secret behind its unique formula and how it can help you. What you need is curcumin that is water soluble. While the biochemistry and physiology of the gut is complex, you basically cannot get something to be more bioavailable than when it's soluble in water. To really understand how you can get the most out of curcumin, it helps to know a little about its ancient golden history. The raw spice turmeric and its active compound curcumin have been used to add bright yellow and gold colours to food and clothing for over 5,000 years. It was used to dye the vibrant golden robes of the sacred Buddhist monks and in India's traditional medicine called Ayurveda, which today is practiced by over 1 billion people. It is used as a staple for addressing inflammation, joint issues, and is used as a cure for a multitude of health concerns. India is still considered to be the spice capital of the world, spreading knowledge about using spices and herbs for healing and medicinal use. It's said that there was once a time when therapeutic spices like turmeric were even more valuable than gold. The truth is, though, that natural turmeric hardly scratches the surface of what it's capable of because it is just so poorly absorbed. You would need to eat buckets of turmeric and other spices in order to get a fraction of the results you'd get with Truth Origin's liquid curcumin. So now I'm going to tell you how to know if the supplement you are using is effective. Pay attention and listen for the secrets to getting the most out of curcumin. First and most important of all, if it's unmodified turmeric spice, don't bother. That is, of course, unless you're using it to make your cooking taste better. Curcumin isn't absorbed, and as far as scientists know, it won't do anything for you in this turmeric form. Like I said though, natural turmeric will still add spice to your taste buds, but do little to help your body. Second, when it comes to curcumin, you need to find out whether it's natural or synthetic. Truth Origin's liquid curcumin is 100% plant-based, natural, and extracted without any harmful chemicals or synthetics whatsoever. The curcumin itself is precisely as nature made it. Be aware that others, however, use a synthetic variant of curcumin called THC, no relationship to the THC in cannabis, tetrahydrocurcumin. The process of preparing THC from turmeric is very similar to the way in which margarine is produced through the chemical hardening of butterfat. And we all know what a nutritional disaster margarine has been. Furthermore, THC itself has virtually zero bioavailability, so supplement companies have to disguise this by dispersing the THC in oil. In this type of preparation, THC particle size remains on the order of hundreds of microns, which is about 1,000 times too large to be absorbed quickly and effectively. Our knowledge of gut physiology suggests that THC has a far lower bioavailability than claimed by manufacturers and salespeople, so don't be fooled. Oh, and by the way, if you're still considering a THC-based supplement, instead of natural curcumin, consider this. To date, there have been about 150 human clinical trials using curcumin. The number of trials using THC, you guessed it, 0. Now I have a confession to make. I'm one of those 40-something-year-old guys that is completely addicted to cycling. I want to tell you the story of how I got into cycling because I think you'll find it somewhat revealing as to how I got into curcumin. As a young man at the age of 18, I was diagnosed with the inflammatory bowel disease called Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease, like so many terrible medical complaints, such as acne, diabetes, thyroid, and celiac disease, is what's known as an autoimmune disease. Put simply, the body's own immune system turns its weaponry on itself, causing out-of-control inflammation, pain, and dysfunction. For about 10 years after being diagnosed, I was in and out of hospital. Whenever the inflammation would flare up, my bowel would obstruct. Now, I don't know what childbirth feels like, but I expect it isn't dissimilar to what I went through some 30 times in my 20s. Along the way, I underwent 2 bowel resections. Both times, the surgeon removed about 1 foot of my small intestine. Apart from surgery, my doctors prescribed at least 10 different drugs to bring the inflammation under control. I never really liked taking the drugs because while some of them made me feel better, I knew that these same drugs were used to drastically suppress the immune system, making me susceptible to infections and cancer. Speaking of which, during my hospital residency, a lump popped up in the side of my neck. The specialists, after a very frightening period, elected to treat me, successfully I'm happy to add, for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the immune system. Despite the hiccups of Crohn's and cancer, I enjoyed a pretty healthy life and got to play lots of basketball during the 15 or so years I was studying at university and my hospital rotations. Unfortunately, at the ripe old age of 37, my left hip was causing me so much grief that I had to visit the orthopedic surgeon. Long story short, I had early onset osteoarthritis, again with a fair degree of inflammation, and had my hip joint replaced when I was 39 years old. By now you're probably ready to give up on me. But wait, there's more. During my rehabilitation for the hip replacement, I noticed a strange sensation in my throat while I was moving across the basketball court. This turned out to be a warning sign called angina for what was almost a complete blockage of my right coronary artery. It appeared that despite doing everything right in terms of diet and exercise, not smoking, and having really good blood pressure and cholesterol, I still had managed to develop heart disease. I guess you can't do much about your genes. In any case, ischemic heart disease is now thought itself to be an inflammatory condition. It's just that the inflammation is in the walls of the arteries instead of the joints. I've told you my story because you'll now understand why I'm so passionate about modern medicine, but at the same time, I'm a massive advocate for natural compounds that may add to, or better still, substitute for pharmaceuticals. And it was my drive to improve my own health and that of my patients that brought me to become medical director for Truth Origins and tell you about this breakthrough water-soluble curcumin. I now want to talk a little bit about inflammation and pain before giving you my absolute top tips for managing these problems. Make sure you watch through to the end or you'll miss the good stuff. To begin with, not all inflammation is bad. We need it to live. In fact, inflammation is one of the key ways by which the body protects itself against infection and injury. An elegant cascade of events at the site under threat leads to leakiness in the blood vessels and the attraction of inflammatory cells, fluid and proteins. This is what causes swelling, but it's also what starts off the process of healing. Inflammation is delicately regulated most of the time, and the issues to do with inflammation are a consequence of imbalance, or as we call it, dysregulation. Inflammatory dysregulation can result in absolute disaster, as in the case of anaphylactic shock, where inflammation causes life-threatening swelling in the airways and the simultaneous plummeting of blood pressure. Many, if not most of the conditions that reduce our quality of life have an inflammatory component. Gut distress, premenstrual syndrome and period pain, joint pain, brain fog can all be the result of dysregulated inflammation. Modern medicine has a range of drugs that are extremely effective in quelling inflammation, but for the most part they fall into two categories, and both of these have their own set of nasty health problems. The first category is known as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs for short. NSAIDs act by disrupting the production of inflammatory chemicals in the body, known as prostaglandins. NSAIDs are very effective in mild to moderate inflammation, but as we all know, this comes at a cost. Not surprisingly, prostaglandins are also important in the normal function of organs such as the stomach and the kidneys. Long-term NSAID use has been directly associated with stomach and intestinal ulcers and kidney failure. For this reason, we as doctors never prescribe them as a long-term solution, which is hardly comforting for those with ongoing inflammatory issues. The second category are immunotherapies. These essentially work by modifying the immune system, which means basically reducing immunity. Prednisolone, Imuran or cyclosporin are examples of this powerful category of anti-inflammatory. But as long-term therapies, they are reserved for very serious cases of inflammatory illness, for instance rheumatoid arthritis, or where immune suppression is required, such as after a kidney transplant. Prednisolone and drugs like it can actually be used as short-term treatments and can be effective for joint complaints. However, they carry the possibility of joint destruction, and while the risk of this is small, it can happen with devastating consequences. Needless to say, we should be doing everything we can to avoid either of these two options, using advances in our understanding of lifestyle and nutrition to solve problems without pharmaceutical drugs. An analogy I like to use is that these pharmaceutical drugs are a bit like using a sledgehammer when what's really needed is a chisel, leaving you with a sculpture, not a hotel room after Oasis have stayed for the week. And this is where curcumin comes in. It's the chisel. And the scientific study of curcumin is definitely heating up. To date, there have now been over 18,000 research publications on the topic of curcumin, over half of which have been published in the past 5 years. The literature mainly focuses on curcumin's effect against inflammation and oxidative stress, with demonstration of excellent safety, tolerability, and non-toxicity. Curcumin is known to reduce the activity of a number of key enzymes that are essential for inflammation. In doing so, the production of various pro-inflammatory molecules is lessened. These findings are now well established in vitro, which means in a test tube, as well as animal experiments. And we are beginning to see promising results in human clinical trials too. I'm very happy to report that several of these were in inflammatory bowel disease patients, which overwhelmingly improved with oral curcumin taken daily for several months. But the research also shows enormous promise for patients with a number of inflammatory conditions, with positive effects found in patients with arthritis, inflammatory joint pain, premenstrual syndrome and period pain, psoriasis, anterior uveitis, and hepatitis. I want to remind you though that for curcumin to work effectively, it must be bioavailable. And the best way to improve bioavailability is to improve water solubility. Truth Origin's liquid curcumin is water soluble, with curcumin particles as small as 0.6 of a micron. Powders and hard fat emulsions with particle sizes of 800 to 1,000 microns just do not deliver the curcumin to your cells. As I mentioned before, particle size is critical and ideally needs to be under 1 micron to be absorbed. In order to extract all of the curcumin molecules from the raw turmeric plant, Truth Origins use a patented extraction technique that uses carbon dioxide instead of some of the petrochemical solvents used by other supplement manufacturers. Truth Origin's CO2 extraction is the cleanest possible way to prepare full spectrum turmeric alkaloids. And allow me to remind you that these compounds are exactly as they are found in the turmeric plant, not synthetically made in a lab like the other curcumin supplements. Once cleanly extracted, using more than a stroke of Aussie biochemical ingenuity, the natural curcumin is placed in a polymer micelle microemulsion. What does all of that mean to the non-biochemist? Well, it basically means that something not naturally water-soluble, like curcumin, is rendered water-soluble. In addition, Truth Origins has added a variety of completely plant-based organic ingredients to the product to maximise its potency and efficacy. For instance, black pepper extract has been shown to increase curcumin bioavailability by 20-fold. Another ingredient used to help bioavailability is caffeine-free green tea extract. This contains a multitude of antioxidants, which complement the natural antioxidant activities of curcumin. Green tea extract also contains certain polyphenols, which have been published in the scientific literature to promote body fat loss. In fact, I co-authored a few of these publications myself. Pain is one of the most common problems that I see as a doctor in general practice. And pain can be either acute, which really means that it's occurred for less than 3 or so months, or chronic, or of course both. The purpose of pain, which can occur in practically any part of the body, is to protect us from injury or from further injuring ourselves. When people feel pain, it almost always means that physically something's wrong. All doctors have been drilled on how to inquire about their patient's pain, because a good historical account of someone's pain can often give them the diagnosis without any need for further investigations, such as blood tests or scans. GPs see pain ranging from mild, barely more than a nuisance, through to that which is completely debilitating. Fortunately, the disabling pain is rare, and those with it should go straight to the hospital. Chronic back and joint pain, while not necessarily the most severe pain, is extremely distressing for people, because it profoundly affects activities of daily life, like picking things up, getting dressed, or going shopping. Chronic pain is a complex disorder that is by definition very difficult to alleviate. For this reason, countless drugs and remedies, including some pretty radical surgical interventions, have been developed to manage chronic pain. My management plan for people with incurable pain is very different to that for someone that has slept funny and woken up with a sore neck, or complains of a bad headache after staring at a computer screen all day. Anyway, here goes with my top 5 tips. Number 1, change your mindset. First and foremost, it's important to set realistic expectations because this has been proven to impact the subjective experience of pain, otherwise known as suffering. People with incurable pain that have an expectation of living with a certain amount of pain suffer much less than those that expect to become pain-free. In fact, it is the realization of this fact that is central to the religion of Buddhism, as well as particular forms of meditation. On this latter point, meditation is definitely worth a try, and there are some really good apps that take the stigma of incense and alternative living out of meditation. My favourite is Sam Harris's Waking Up app. Believe it or not, meditating on the pain, as in focusing on the experience in that moment as opposed to dreading the future and without trying to do anything about it, actually reduces suffering. Number 2, physical exercise, but just a bit. The second priority is to do as much activity as possible to prevent the person in pain from deconditioning further and take pressure off injured body parts. Exercise may be the last thing on the mind of the person with chronic pain, but again, time and time again, studies have shown that exercise improves practically every measure of subjective experience, from pain scores to mood to outlook and quality of life. This is why I prescribe 20 to 30 minutes of exercise per day, something that's at least a little challenging to all of my patients with incurable pain. Well, actually, to all of my patients. Again, 50-kilometre bike rides and hour-long sessions in the pool are great, but since people don't have the time nor energy for these, I found a great option is to exercise along with an app, such as the Sufferfest. Don't be put off by the name, it's fantastic. Swerkit, Yoga Glow, or Daily Yoga. These are great, highly cost-effective, and able to be customised to each person's abilities and limitations. I have to say, I find yoga and Pilates to be incredibly helpful. Some people get instant benefit, others take longer. But there is no one that gets no benefit, so hang in there. If an app isn't enough to get you motivated, then physiotherapists and experienced personal trainers are the next best bet. Number 3, try TENS, Transepidermal Nerve Stimulation. This has been around for many years, but it's becoming more popular because you can now buy a machine really cheaply on eBay. TENS is simple to apply. You basically hook up 4 stick-on electrodes, a bit like an ECG machine, across the region of pain and turn the machine to deliver a very low intensity electric shock. I've used this myself and found I was turning the machine up to maximum to see if I could stand it. Not sure I recommend that approach, but TENS works by distracting the nerves from carrying the pain signal back to the brain. Think of it as like looking at your phone while concentrating on driving. It's basically impossible to do both. That's my public service message for the day. Inevitably, a discussion on managing chronic pain has to involve some information on medication. And I see no reason for you to learn any differently from the way I was taught in medical school and in the hospitals and GP training, etc. Exhaust non-pharmacological options, then start low and go slow. Number 4, good old paracetamol, but 4 times a day, strict. I've observed in my years as a doctor that people tend to dismiss paracetamol. This may have something to do with the fact that you can buy them at Sainsbury's. However, paracetamol is probably one of the most underrated drugs on the planet. The trick is to take it correctly, as the true benefit of paracetamol in treating chronic pain is only unlocked when it's taken 4 times a day, strict. Paracetamol is cheap and safe, and the standard 4 times a day dose, as long as you have a liver and it's working, is fine. The toxic dose is actually several multiples of this, but don't try that at home. When paracetamol is combined with low-dose codeine, it is very effective analgesic agent, but codeine itself is an opioid, and I'll discuss that later. Ibuprofen, an NSAID, is a fantastic drug for pain and inflammation, and as a fairly serious cyclist, I admit to doing my bit to keeping Nurofen sales up. Unlike paracetamol, however, ibuprofen is not safe for prolonged periods due to its effect on stomach, kidneys, blood clotting, and various interactions with other drugs. Number 5, avoid opioids. I promised to mention opioids, but I'm only doing this for interest's sake. Because if you think you need opioids, you also need a doctor that's not on the internet. As I mentioned before, codeine is the most accessible opioid. It's in Night Nurse. Otherwise well-known opioids are morphine, oxycodone, and of course the clear choice of train spotters, heroin. Opioids work on a particular type of receptor in the central nervous system. No surprise here, they're known as opioid receptors. The strength of an opioid is determined by many factors, including how well it binds to these receptors and how long it stays there. I have administered doses of morphine to people suffering with chronic pain, say in leukemia, that would literally stop an elephant. The increasing tolerance is unavoidable, unfortunately. Another issue is that opioids also work on other receptors, so cause all sorts of nasty side effects like constipation, blurry vision, urinary and sexual dysfunction. I don't recall seeing anyone that looked healthy while regularly taking opioids, and I have seen a great number that were quite the opposite. Having discussed medications at length, I do want to circle back to the exciting advances in plant-based supplements. This is my final top tip. While they haven't necessarily been subjected to the same scientific rigour as drugs sold through the pharmacy, some natural remedies have a very important place in pain, and actually the evidence for their role in relieving pain is growing rapidly. And as an even greater benefit, there are little to no negative side effects from this amazing natural supplement. Of course, the one supplement in particular that I'm referring to is curcumin. Curcumin is a compound that is extracted from the herbaceous turmeric plant, which is a member of the ginger family. Turmeric has of course been used for centuries in traditional remedies and is a much loved spice used in cooking. Curcumin is the most active component of turmeric and has been the topic of intense scientific research in recent years. Curcumin has been extensively studied in both humans and experimental animals, leading to some 18,000 peer-reviewed scientific publications. These publications have demonstrated the ability of curcumin to reduce pain and inflammation, improve joint mobility, improve cognition, memory and mood, increase natural energy, assist weight loss. It's amazing. And what is even more exciting is the fact that scientists in Australia have just developed a unique extraction technique that makes curcumin derived from organically grown turmeric completely water soluble. Prior to this, the effectiveness of curcumin has been limited by the inability of our bodies to absorb it since it isn't naturally water soluble. The promise of bringing curcumin to consumers in a truly water soluble and bioavailable form enticed me into becoming medical director for Truth Origins. I am immensely proud to bring world-class supplements like liquid curcumin to the market for you to enjoy today. I hope you or someone you know that is suffering with pain find this information useful. My take-home message, if there is just one, is that there are many options to consider before going anywhere near a pharmacy, or at least use in conjunction with pharmacotherapy. Don't underestimate the power of Truth Origins liquid curcumin. In fact, we guarantee results. Try Truth Origins liquid curcumin, and if you don't get results, send back the bottle within 60 days for a full refund. We want to help you get results, so if you don't, then you don't pay. No other doctor or pharmacy in the world will offer something like this. This is because I believe curcumin can help people get relief that they need, and our Trustpilot reviews definitely support my belief. Come and try Truth Origins liquid curcumin for yourself and see 100% risk-free.